What if I told you that the future of your life could depend on a job you never even wanted in the first place? A job like washing dishes, cleaning tables, carrying plates for strangers who don't even notice you. Now imagine two men look at that job and think, this is our way out. Welcome to Busboys 2026, a chaotic, hilarious, and surprisingly unpredictable comedy starring David Spade and Theo. But don't let the comedy fool you, because underneath the jokes, this story is about desperation, delusion, and the strange way people chase meaning in the worst possible places. The movie begins in a dusty Arizona border town. Nothing special here. No opportunities. No future. Just two best friends drifting through life like they're waiting for something that will never come. Their names are Marky and Steve. They are broke, unmotivated, and honestly completely lost. They spend their days doing absolutely nothing productive, talking big, dreaming bigger, and achieving nothing. But everything changes the day they see a sign. A simple restaurant sign that says, Busboys Wanted. And in that moment, something clicks in their heads. Not logic, not wisdom, but pure, dangerous confidence. Marky looks at Steve and says, this is it. This is how we fix our lives. And that is where everything begins to fall apart. Because they don't just want jobs. They truly believe, that becoming busboys is the first step to greatness. But what they don't realize is, this restaurant is not normal, and neither is the world they're about to enter. So, Marky and Steve walk into the restaurant like they own the place, and they immediately come up with a plan, and I use that word very loosely, because their plan is this: become busboys, work hard for a few days, get promoted to waiters, become successful, solve all their life problems forever. Simple, clean, perfect, at least in their minds. They get hired almost instantly. Why? Because no one else wanted the job, and that should have been their first warning. But instead of doubting it, they see it as destiny. The first day is pure chaos. Marky spills drinks, Steve breaks plates, they argue with customers, they misunderstand every single instruction. But instead of getting fired, something strange happens. The manager just sighs and says, "You two are special problems," and lets them stay. But here's where things shift, because inside this restaurant, there's a strange hierarchy. Busboys at the bottom, waiters above them, and something else watching everything from behind the scenes. The deeper they go, the more the restaurant feels less like a workplace and more like a system, a strange machine that tests people, breaks people, or somehow changes them. Marky becomes obsessed with the idea of promotion. Steve becomes paranoid that something is wrong, but neither of them leaves, because now it's no longer about the job. It's about proving they are not failures, and that's when the real chaos begins. As days turn into weeks, the restaurant starts changing them. Or maybe it was always like this. Marky becomes aggressive with ambition. He starts believing he's destined for something bigger. He even starts saying things like, "We're not busboys, we're just waiters in training." But Steve is breaking down. He starts noticing things that don't make sense. Orders that repeat exactly the same. Customers who seem familiar, even though they shouldn't be. Shifts that feel like they loop endlessly. And then comes the first big twist. One night, Steve follows a delivery route outside the restaurant, and he realizes something terrifying. The restaurant doesn't exist in just one place. It appears differently depending on who enters it, almost like it is shaped by the people inside it. But what happens next changes everything. Steve discovers old employee records, and every single worker eventually disappears from the system. Not fired, not quit, just erased. Meanwhile, Marky is getting closer to promotion, or at least he thinks he is. But the promotion process is not what they expected. It involves strange tests, psychological tasks, humiliation disguised as training, and worst of all, watching other busboys fail and vanish from the system entirely. Now the truth begins to form. This restaurant is not just a workplace. It is a filter, a machine that consumes ambition and spits out something different. And Marky? He doesn't care anymore, because he finally sees it as a challenge he must win, even if it destroys him, even if it destroys everything. Steve tries to convince him to leave, but Marky says something chilling. If we leave now, we admit we were nothing. And that's when we realize, this is no longer about a job. It's about identity. The final act begins with a promotion announcement. Marky is selected. He becomes a waiter. Steve is not. But instead of celebration, the tone turns dark, because becoming a waiter is not freedom. It is assimilation. Marky changes almost instantly. His personality flattens. His humor disappears. His ambition becomes quiet obedience. He is still there, but not really himself anymore. Steve finally understands the truth. There is no promotion. There is only transformation. You don't move up. You become part of the system. And now comes the final choice. Steve tries one last time to save Marky. He finds him in the back room, and Marky doesn't even fully recognize him anymore. Steve begs him, "This isn't us. We were supposed to leave." But Marky replies, "Leave? Why would I leave when I finally belong?" And that's when Steve realizes the horrifying truth. The restaurant doesn't break people. It replaces them. Final scene. Steve walks out of the restaurant alone. He looks back one last time. Marky is serving tables perfectly now, smiling. Empty. Gone. And as Steve walks away, a new Busboys wanted sign is placed outside the restaurant. Fresh, clean, waiting, like nothing ever happened. Busboys 2026 isn't just a comedy. It's a story about ambition turning into obsession, friendship breaking under pressure, and how systems consume people who try too hard to escape them. Because sometimes the thing you think will save you is the thing that replaces you. And that is the full story of Busboys 2026, a film that starts as a joke and slowly becomes something far more disturbing than anyone expected. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe, because there are always more stories hiding behind the surface, waiting to be uncovered. And the next one might be even darker than this.